You can look month by month at the federal government's war on science, as they call it.
But then the third would even be just maybe educating the medical field. Like, why not work towards introducing these sorts of ideas in herbal?
Yes.
I mean, it's not just marijuana, but I mean all of these different herbal remedies that are available. That allopathic medicine, oh, that's nothing, whatever, they're they're poo-pooed on. Why not actually, encourage that and introduce that into the medical field, in medical education, to help change the social ideas and acceptability? I don't know.
That's what he's doing.
People are working on all these fronts, and if you want to help, let me know, because I can put you in touch with folks that are working on medical professional education, that are working at the federal government level, state government levels, and in science. It's true. I mean, all of these fronts have got to be worked on. The alternative medicine thing, a lot of the politics around alternative medicines do get projected on into this category, and that's kind of part of the national discussion around alternative medicines. I think it's important that doctors should be able to write recommendations for things that aren't necessarily been gone through particular trials of that thing. I mean, that's off-label use of drugs is very common.
You can do it. Yeah.
You can. Yeah. And so cannabis as a medicine should, while we get FDA approval for a particular type, it shouldn't happen at the same time, should go on while patients also be able to access their own locally produced, clean quantities. A lot of local regulations have already been set up in California on this. There's 340 cannabis dispensaries there. And so they've set their own standards on which quality they want for patients and that kind of thing. So I think people need to be more involved in the local side of things. But both tracks should go, because some patients do not want, they want an FDA approved, thing that they can buy in the pharmacy that's of known standardized, labeling, and some patients don't want psychoactive effect, and that they should be able to have varieties that don't have that potential confounder, less THC in them, more CBD, that kind of thing. So I think all channels should be open, but it's been very recalcitrant. And since '37, you're right, we've had a federal ban on cannabis, and in 1969, that ban was overturned in the U.S. Supreme Court. The case of Timothy Leary was brought to the U.S. Supreme Court, and then in 1970, they introduced some comprehensive legislation, the Controlled Substances Act, which actually was a very big tent legislation to try to kind of keep everything open. It actually reduced cannabis penalties initially, but over the years, over the Reagan war on drugs, those penalties just got added back to that. So now it's in a very difficult situation where it's still seen as a Schedule I substance with no medical use currently.
But it doesn't really have any sort of reasoning behind it? It's just
you are describing it, I'm watching you, the stunned expression. Those of us who've been doing this, it's the stunned expression. For 20 years I thought it's just a matter of educating. Yeah. And then you interact with enough politicians and the legal system, it's just not about educating. Clearly, science is on the one side and there's nothing but politics on the other side. And the outrage, the little bit like, isn't this just like...
Believe me, I thought it was going to be really simple when I started defending patients. I thought, once I get this information out, once anybody understands these are sick people that we're talking about here, they won't want to put them in jail. This won't be happening.
I'm working on an American
20 minutes before I get here this morning, I get a phone call from a lady who's been raped, who's a medical patient in Tenino. Her house has been broken into when she's not there. All of her stuff's been taken. They trashed her house. They screwed up her dogs, and it's all over medical marijuana because she's got a few houseplants in the garage. Now, I didn't think that it would take, we'd be talking here like 10 years later, and bunches of cases later and stuff. I thought people would wake up and smell the cat food pretty quick, but it just hasn't happened. So, welcome to irrationality in America.
That's what's so important about Sunil's work, actually.
He has. Gentleman has asked a question. Angel, please.
I don't mean to derail, and it is a little complex, but it was pointed out pretty obviously by one of your first timeline graphs, and then reinforced a couple of different times in the 3 different parts. Was it an accident, or is there a direction? Culturally, you watch it dip and rise with politics and the way people feel. I kind of got reinforcement when you talked about the Mississippi Project that is now winnowed down to 4 people. Has that been through attrition? We just wait for them to die, and when those 4 people die, there won't be any more people. And then the cultural aspect where you brought people's opinions, and thought it was an odd opinion that I'd never thought that anyone should have to defend anything except their cultural acceptance of cannabis. Do you think that that is the prevalent tide, that just the way that the politicians feel today is the way that the tide's going to go? Like you said, watching them persecute doctors, watching them persecute scientists, you know, watching them persecute regular folks is just, you know, is it a matter of changing the trend culturally, or is there a direction to maybe study that? Because like you said, in Europe and abroad, in places where there's no derogatory perception immediately, you know, there's a lot more freedom, you know, to do the studies, to get the reinforcing facts and stuff. And like I said, it was it an accident that you see these issues and maybe addressed them, or do you see that as part of the geography?
Definitely, cultural geography plays a huge role in cannabis acceptability. And early in the days, people knew nothing of it, you know, and they just knew that it was associated with certain groups in society. Jazz musicians, Mexican Americans.
You brought up the reefer thing, and you brought up the
right.
You know, the Marinol thing. I thought, you know, and the question asked, you know, wow, that went through a speedy process. The first thing in my mind was, well, did we check who owned the company? You know, it culturally unacceptable, but my buddy's going to make a whole pile of dough. So
good observation, definitely. And there's a medical culture we have to go through too. And that's what we're trying to. This is kind of a medical pluralism issue. There's different systems of medicine operating in a place at any one time, and I'm kind of seeing what happens when one system, you know, qualified medical doctors are involved in a system where patients then go access local, which is very cultural, historical kind of phenomenon of germplasm in the environment. You know, so it's a bridge we're having to make between those systems. Okay, Magic, I'm going to get Joanna first, and then Dominic, did you have a question?
I'll let other people speak.
Okay.
It just, from your map and such, it seems that the West Coast, the left coast, the more